ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen. Charlie brings the music down, down, down. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you so very, very much. Wow. Let me get this out of the way here. Wow. So, as I already said, friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me both of your ears. Whether you're down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world, thank you for tuning in to the George Espinlove Show in the afternoon. Oh, there's a character that entered in, Harry. I think you know who that is. With her bright, sunshiny smile. And then here comes, there's Paul. Hi, Paul. Glad to have you, buddy. Glad to have you. So that's Mrs. Espinlove. Harry knows Mrs. Espinlove. I have to mind my P's and Q's. And she said, hello, Harry.
Hello, Nancy. How you doing?
Then we have Scott with us. Hi, Scott. Hope you're feeling better, buddy. Day by day, I guess that's the way it works. We have Paul with us from Canada. My good friend Harry, all the way over there from Ireland. We're expecting John to drop in here, fall in here, trip in here. However he gets in here in just a little bit. We got room for him. Let me see if I can switch us around here anyway, get our seating arrangement going. Anybody like that? Like that?
Yeah. That's about it, George.
That's it there? You want to be in that little spot over there?
Yeah. It might improve my lag because I notice I'm lagging a bit, and it might just improve if the picture's smaller,
Paul, are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy.
When I watched you and Harry, I think it was you, Harry, and John before when y'all was on. Paul just reminds me of a fellow who's just laid back and nothing seems to really upset him or perturb him. Or you're my kind of guy, Paul.
Thank you.
You'll notice, George, after a little while, his chair, for some particular reason, defies gravity, and it goes down and down and down. And after maybe half an hour, you might just see the glasses.
Yeah. And then he looks like Wilson on the TV program. The guy looked out over the fence. All you saw was his eye. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I put on the description of this thing when I wrote it up around noontime. We are a motley crew. What you see is what you get. And we're just like, I said 4 guys. Of course, we'll have 4 if John stumbles in here sooner or later. But we're just like now, we're just 3 guys that's sitting around chewing the fat. Something different. Nothing real serious. Nothing gut gripping or nerve wracking or thrilling or any of those things. Just 3 guys sitting around chewing the fat. One from Ireland, one from Canada, and me here in the States. And John, I keep mentioning John. John from Denver, he's en route, wherever that might be. But nonetheless, it's so good to have you guys this afternoon. As I already said, nothing thrilling, just us. And we'll chew the fat. Let me ask you guys, now that you've become familiar with StreamYard, and Harry and Paul, you guys have done this before. What do you think of this StreamYard puppy?
I kind of like it, but we haven't we haven't done a music show with it.
I'll tell you why that is, Paul. If I'm intersect, uh, they're very, very tight, controlled, especially if you send your stream out live towards the likes of Facebook, etc., especially Facebook, because they'll pull you right away once they hear you playing music due to copyright, etc. Even though there might not be copyright in that particular song, they'll pull it anyway just to be on the safe side. Because I did try it myself once, thinking this is going to be a panacea of everything. But I realize now that it's ideal, it's clever, it's for chat shows such as George is doing, even with us. It's 100 out of 100. But to interact with bringing in a different form of genre like music, etc., it's mighty, mighty difficult. So I think it's the old adage that do what you do best. And I think George, without giving him too much of a big head, George's shows have always been entertaining because he has people and he talks just like the way he doesn't realize, Paul, that we and you are multimillionaires, you know, and he won't he won't broadcast that
Yeah,
fact
yeah,
because
yeah.
the begging editors will start to come in.
When the show is finished, I'll have 700 messages on Facebook now.
I,
For money.
what I did, Harry, was quite some time ago, through Spreaker, and then through I use Epidemic Sound, and like the music that I played in the beginning of our stream, that Facebook and YouTube recognizes that music. Tons and tons of people uses Epidemic Sound for their video creations and this and that, and they've got like 30,000 songs and so on and so forth. So I can stream the Epidemic Sound or the Epidemic songs into Facebook and YouTube with no problem. And in fact, maybe after a while here, we'll play a tune or two. But yeah, and it works really, really, really good with that. With how do you what do you find that is wonder what is the best thing that you found out about StreamYard? And no, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not getting paid to bring up things about StreamYard. I'm just asking my friends because we all use it. What is one of the best things that you found about StreamYard, Paul?
I like the split screen, so you can have like multiple people, and you can change up whoever. You can change to whoever's talking, and that's kind of neat.
Harry, what's the best thing you found out about this thing?
Well, when Paul, John Bundy, and myself did a little show a month or two back, I was overwhelmed by the quality, the picture, and the lip sync was accurate, and everything was as you'd imagine if you turned the television on. Tonight, unfortunately, I've got to stand back from those comments because I noticed myself, and it's probably me, I'm lagging terribly. So I'm taking a step away. It could be StreamYard, but you're coming in fine. Paul's coming in fine. So I'm assuming it's my end here. And from that point of view, it's annoying. But no, we both agreed, Paul especially, that when we did a little show, it was top notch, and I was looking forward to doing more. But then it's a case of getting people timed. I mean, Paul said yes, John said yes, we'll do another show. But then, of course, we all have different things to do in life, and we never did get around to doing a third show. But no, I think the quality is very, very good. When I finish tonight, I'll readdress if it's me, I'll do a few little testers myself to see if I could maybe get rid of that lag. But no, I think the quality is definitely, up there with the Facebooks. Facebooks do a live one now, of course, but it doesn't have the so many people there and the cutouts for the different people, as Paul suggested. But no, I think we'll look back in a year's time when it's gone even further and better. We'll look back and probably the little snags that I'm having an issue with at the moment will all be ironed out, and it would, who would have believed a few years ago that you could have done this? You couldn't have imagined that you could have done it. But there again, there's people out there who call them geeks, call them whatever, and they're working on a daily basis, coming out with new ideas.
There, Harry has, and you folks that listen to me on the radio all the time, I play his promo over and over again. This is the man, Harry Burke, the Swingin' 60 Show. So you just Google the Swingin' 60 Show, and I'll guarantee you Mr. Harry Burke will pop up. Harry, talking about the radio, you've been on the radio for, oh my goodness, I think since Noah stepped off the ark or something like that.
He was one of my first listeners.
Was he?
No, I haven't counted the years back, but I'm sure it must be 10, George. And I haven't improved since day one. Most people improve, but I remain constant. Still as bad as the day it was when and by the way, I see John Bundy's on Facebook and he's trying to get in there. Did you send him a link, George? Because I think he's struggling to.
I sent him a link. The same place that I always send it to when him and I chat. So okay. I think he'll find us. John will stumble around and eventually he'll find the open door, and we'll hear him crashing in and tumbling to the floor and then getting up and shaking himself off and saying, hello, why is everybody late? Something like that. Somebody wants to know, let me put this up here. If I can go back up and find it again. I think it was Miss Nancy that said it. There you go. How did Paul and Harry meet?
Somebody hooked me up with Harry's show maybe 5 years ago. And that's it. We've never actually met in person.
No, I think you're right, Paul. I think it came about in the early days. I've got to say, we had people not only coming onto my show, but everybody's show who were like not so nice people. They could have been young, they could have been old, but they used to come on and swear a bit and all that kind of stuff. And I banned them all. And I got to a serious situation where Paul was the only one left. And I just pulled him aside like a good schoolmaster and said, look, Paul, you can hang on in there. But no, Paul never, he's not free with his words that way. He hasn't cursed or swore. And from those early days, when you get rid of the badness out of your show, people tend not to, they tend not to do it. So although cursing and swearing is a kind of an everyday in most people's lives, I tend not to swear. I try not to swear. But I must admit, if I ever kind of stubbed my foot or hit my finger with a hammer, I would probably come out with a few expletives. But not normally playing music. Playing music to me is a time to kind of relax and get people involved. So I always think, well, I'll treat you the way I hope to be treated by you, So that's the way it goes.
Hey, Paul, after having years of some of Harry's moldy sandwiches and stale beer in the chat room, after a while you kind of get used to it, don't you?
You do. I mean, I used to go live on Harry's show 1 or 2 times a year, and it was always a lot of fun. But the virtual money that I earn is virtually useless.
We, I tell people on the radio, either before or after I run your promo, Harry. Uh, Harry has some of the best moldy bread and stale beer that you'll ever find anywhere. So make sure you drop in. And you have a name for the people that comes there. What is it? Is it the unwashables?
I call them the Great Unwashed. I think you'll find if you look at it and Google it up on the internet, it goes back to Victorian times, where people used to live in tenement flats and there'd be maybe 10 people to a room. They had little to eat, certainly no real clothing to talk of, just down in their bad luck. So I always say they at first I think they thought I was. See, I always thought. I always think the Americans don't get our sense of humor because a few times in the early days I had to apologize to people because they said, "Hey, stop talking to people like that. That's rude." Blah blah blah. But the people over here in the UK and Ireland and England, they get it right away because we have a tendency to give somebody a dig before they give us one. Do you follow me? So we're kind of fast with the kind of one-liners, but we mean it in good heart. We mean it in good. We wouldn't say it otherwise.
Yeah, but you remember those days from the potato famine in the 1800s, Harry?
Yeah, I'm still wearing the clothes from the 1840s.
We could tell.
There was some rough days out in those potato fields, wasn't it, Harry?
Well, I tell you what, if you look at, you could Google it, of course. The potato famine was called the Great Hunger in Ireland, 1845, and it lasted about 7 years. 2 million people emigrated, especially to the Americas, and 1 million people died of starvation. So it was one hell of a time. And of course, at that particular time, I think, without bringing politics into it, they didn't forgive England because England were kind of, in many ways, holding back. And maybe it was all to do with grain, if I remember right. Ireland exported grain, and I think England didn't take too much of it on. So it was the case of they could have helped, but they didn't. And I think this old thing has been on for the last 100 years between Ireland and England. It all stems back to those particular times. People are very unforgiving.
Paul, you're originally from England, right?
Yeah, I am. I've been in North America since 1973.
So you spent some your younger years in England?
I lived there till I was 18. So I did part of my growing up there and then came to North America, which was kind of like finishing school.
Where were you from in England?
The Midlands, Coventry. It's pretty much right in the center of the country.
Harry, is that where our friend Gray's from? Coventry?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's from Coventry.
Yeah, Graham's from Coventry. Yeah.
Do you know him, Paul?
No, I do not. No.
Yeah. When you mentioned that word, that kind of rang a bell. Of course, I'm always hearing bells here at the Funny Farm, so that was a different sounding bell that time. Harry, and I forgot to do it. Please forgive me. But what I was going to do is I was going to bring up a video of your walkabouts or your drive arounds, Harry's trips. Listen, I love those things. I really do. For you, ladies and gentlemen, that have never seen that, just go on Facebook and look up Harry Burke, Burke. Harry has the most unique way of. He's a gentleman and a scholar. Now, he will go and he will take a walk, and he will take you with him. and he will do a live, walkabout, and he'll show you where he's at, what he's doing, and uh, what it is, and all those good things. And then he'll drive and do the same thing and stop and give you. Sometimes it's a historical adventure. Uh, Harry, I know you're having some problems with your leg or your foot right now, but uh, you've been doing that for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah. Have you ever seen the film Ryan's Daughter?
Hmm.
John Mills. John Mills. It was set in Ireland as it happened, and you see John Mills going along the beach, dragging his leg behind him. I don't know, Paul, if you're familiar with that film,
I'm not familiar with the film.
but that's sometimes the way I feel as I'm looking when I point a camera somewhere and I'm walking along a beach. I get this John Mills moment comes over me that I'm in that movie, dragging my leg across the sand.
You have taken us into some interesting places. I'll tell you what I enjoy the most, Harry. I enjoy it when you're by the water and the wind is blowing and is your hair is blowing. I think that is so cool, Harry. Don't ask me what that means that I think that, but I think that is so cool. I think every time I see it, I think that is Harry Burke in the truest sense of the word. What do you think, Paul?
Well, I like them. I don't know if you've ever been to Ireland, but it's pretty nice. I've been there once.
Yeah, that's you caught me at the time I declare that I'm having a bad hair day, George. That's my
Yep,
that's
that
my
was it.
kind of phrase. I'm having a bad hair day.
But it seems like the wind is always blowing in Ireland. Is that the case, or
Yeah, well,
Well, it's surrounded by the ocean and it's very flat. There's
mm,
nothing to really break up the wind.
yeah, that's correct, Paul. You're bang on there. Yeah, it as you say, there's no protection against the wind, and even in a summer's day where people will be lying around on the beach and having a barbecue or whatever, there's always that hint of a breeze coming or a breeze leaving, or etc. etc. But yeah, still, I've always said this: if Ireland's got many beaches, and if the weather was more kinder, we'd have more people visit. But the weather-wise, normally, today was an unusually mild day. It was about 7 degrees centigrade, but normally at this time of year, you'd be talking about freezing point. And saying that, we've got to be thankful because where Paul lives in Canada, he's probably minus 10 and 12 and all those figures that we never ever get to. Isn't that right, Paul?
Well, yesterday here it was 0 Fahrenheit.
what was it, Paul?
0 Fahrenheit,
Wow. Well,
which is about minus 18 centigrade.
Oh,
it's probably 40. I don't know. Maybe some of these folks here in the chat room can help me out. It's probably 40 something here in Delaware. And that's another thing, ladies and gentlemen. When you go to Harry's show on Sundays, the Swinging 60s, you always get a weather report from different parts of the world. John will tell you what it's like there in Canada. Paul will tell you what it's like in Canada, and John will tell you what it's like in Denver, and somebody else will tell you what it's like in England, and so on and so forth. So you always get a thorough worldwide weather report. So you don't want to miss it. Sunday is coming. What's today? Tuesday. Is today Tuesday?
Today's Tuesday.
Today's Tuesday. Okay. So Sunday's coming. Mark it down. Please mark it down. Sunday afternoon. It's 3 p.m. here on the Eastern Coast when Harry is on there in Ireland. And then you do the math. You step it back as you go across the nation. But 3 p.m. Eastern time, you just go to Spreaker.com or Google the Swinging 60s. Let me put this back up here again. You Google that, and Harry will pop up. You go there. You'll get moldy bread, stale beer, you'll become one of the, what is it, Harry? Unwashables?
The great unwashed.
The great unwashed. You'll become one of them. You'll meet some great, great people. I guarantee you'll meet some great, great people in the chat room, and you'll get a full fledged uh, parts of the world weather report. I mean, in real time. In real time, you don't want to miss it. And not only that, Harry plays. When I'm talking about somebody playing uh, the '60s and the '70s and all that good music, this is the man that you want to go listen to on Sunday afternoons. Harry, uh, just off the top of your head, how many, uh, just how many tunes do you have?
Well, I'm smiling at Paul, and Paul's probably smiling at me. I had been taking an enforced rest for the last month. Now you've been giving me this good plug. Paul, I will have to do a good show on Sunday, and
Yes.
I hope you contribute. To answer you, I've got in my system some 60,000 songs. Mainly over time, most of them were bought, most of them were ripped out of the LPs, etc., and turned into MP3 forms. And that's the reason why, and Paul will verify that if somebody asks me for a song, probably 90% of the time I have it, and I can usually play it within a minute or two, you see. So,
He's the fastest DJ in Derry. And he's also the only DJ in Derry.
I was going to say, is there any other, is there any music left to be had? Because Harry seems to have it all, right, Paul?
Sometimes I throw him a curveball.
Yeah. I decided some time ago to drop every so often, George, I would have done a little karaoke number myself.
Yes,
But
I've heard some of them.
I found out the listeners dropped off in some sort of, and it kind of gave me the way of thinking maybe I shouldn't be singing a karaoke. So I stopped doing that a long time back. But I know Paul misses it.
Oh, yeah.
I
miss it like getting a root canal.
Oh, Paul, look, I've heard some of Harry's karaoke's, and I liked them. But here's what you got to do, Paul. You got to get it in your head. Okay, I'm listening to this, but I also understand it's Harry. So that makes all the difference. That makes all the difference in the world. Once you get it in your head, I'm listening to this. But then again, it's Harry. Then it's all right. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes
I always say he sounds like the fifth Beatle. You know, the one who got sacked earlier.
Hey, and another thing that Harry does on his show, and I mean to tell you, Paul, every time I'm there, Paul seems to win hands down. But Harry has the music trivia thing, or whatever you call it, Harry. You want to talk about? You're looking at two men right there that has oodles and oodles and oodles of musical history up here in their brain housing group. I listened to Harry's question, and I'm like, duh. And Paul and Rod and John, I mean, they're just hammering out the answers.
Eventually.
Yeah, you guys are real musical scholars, not just listeners. You guys are scholars. You know who did what, when, behind the scenes, who with, and the whole 9 yards, right?
Be careful, George. Paul will be wanting paying.
I just think, years ago, many years ago, if you start listening to music, you never stop, and if you can remember, it's not so bad. I mean, I used to buy Rolling Stone, I used to buy Melody Maker, and you read all that stuff, and you don't think about it, and then one day you hear a song and you say, "Oh, I know this guy's from and you have some kind of story about it.
I think that's the unique thing, Harry, because in our generations, when we grew up, there was a story behind the music. I can't. uh, Please forgive me, but I can't find much music in certain places nowadays, much less the story. But in our generation, there was a story behind the music, uh, and that I guess, of course, the rock and roll and the beat and the whole 9 yards. That's what drew us. But to this day, if you, I, Paul, or anyone that's listening, here's one of those oldies. It's almost like a flashback. We can remember just about where we were, what we were doing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you can sometimes, yeah.
That's why I'm a big fan of Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan mightn't be the greatest singer in the world, but my God, did he not put compilations together? I always suggest when I play a song by Bob Dylan, it's like reading a book. You turn over a page, he's on to something else. But the words and all of his songs are all very meaningful, and that's the reason. Going back to and confirming what you just said, George. Of course, that yeah, I think a song has to have a good beat, but there's got to be a storyline there somewhere. Otherwise, that's the reason why I don't particularly like rap, because it's all very negative to me, and I don't like it at all. And people say to me, "Well, try and like it," and I don't think you should have to try and like anything. It should be a natural. I like it or you don't like it, but rap to me is a downward spiral. But we're at a funny age group, of course. We're not in our 20s or 30s. I guess if we were, we might be attracted to it. But Paul, are you into rap? No.
No, not in the slightest. Not at all. Uh, my kid will be 33 this year. She don't like rap either.
Okay.
How about country? Are either one of you big on country or certain kinds of country?
I drop in and out of country, I've got to say. Like a lot of music, I mightn't listen to rock for a good year, and then I'll listen to Brian Adams or the Stones or something, and it comes back again to me. Country's a bit like that. I don't like Irish country. In fact, I hate Irish country with a passion because it's the old bottle of beer, it's the girl left me syndrome, and all of that. And it's like a cracked record. Whereas American country, especially the rocky stuff,
Mm-hmm.
at least you could tap your foot to it, you could jump up and down, and you can enjoy it. And I know there's some great artists, American artists who play country, but that's not to take away from the old country. Um, Hank Williams and all of that went before, because I think there's nothing new really. I think it's just progresses to another level, and I think all music really can be enjoyed. People sometimes say to me, "But you're hooked in the '60s," and I say, "Well, it's the way I was brought up." But that's not to say the music of the '50s wasn't good. The music of the '50s, Little Richard and all those names, were very, very, very good. And you can go back to the '30s and have the same thing. So I think for somebody to turn around and say, "I'm not into a particular music of a particular year," I don't like the '40s, I don't like the '70s. I think it's very narrow-minded of them, because there's good tunes out there whatever year it comes from.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Paul.
Mm.
When you was a younger fella, did you did you by chance happen to watch any Lawrence Welk shows?
Oh, I, in passing, I saw them on the television, but I wouldn't watch them. No, no,
Harry,
no.
Harry, did you watch any of the Lawrence Welk shows?
I've never heard of them, to be honest, George.
Oh, okay.
You
Lawrence
know?
Lawrence Welk, and maybe Mrs. Espinlop can jump in here if I get stuck here. But Lawrence Welk used to come on here in the States every Saturday night. I think he'd come on about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, something like that. But Lawrence Welk and his orchestra. Uh, and my mom and dad religiously, I mean, if come that time on a Saturday night, they were in the living room sitting down, uh, and there was Lawrence Welk. Okay. Now, back then, we only had one television, and I think at the time, maybe two channels. Now, they had control. We didn't have flippers then. You had to get up and turn it yourself. But they had control of the television, so you knew you wasn't going to get to flip it to that other channel. If you was going to sit there and watch, you was going to have to bear uh, watching Lawrence Welk. And I used to think that is the stupidest kind of music. Now this is in the 50s, the early 60s, and I used to say, "Oh my!" But the reason I asked you that is this: I find myself now, Harry, that I'm 70, that I'm 71. My wife and I will come across like an advertisement on the television, or we'll come across an old channel that playing Lawrence Welk music or showing the old Lawrence Welk show, the singers and the dancers and the whole band and stuff. And we'll find ourselves liking that certain kind of music. And she'll look at me and she'll say, "Wow, Dad, we're getting old." Because we couldn't take that stuff when we were young kids. But like you said, there's certain music in every age that is enlightening. It's good. The big bands. I love big band music. How about you?
I'm good with that.
Hmm. Harry, you like big band music?
Yeah, I like big band music. Whether it lasts an hour or so, I mightn't like it so much, but snippets lasting 5 or 10 minutes, yeah, I go along with it. Something that has happened over here in Ireland in the 60s, or just prior to the 60s, you might not have heard, but it's similar to what you're talking about. We had what was called show bands over here, where you'd have maybe 8 people in a group. Two or three would be playing guitar, a guy would be playing the trumpet, and there was a kind of an orchestra feel about it. But at that particular time, there was 600 in a small place like Ireland. There was 600 show bands at any particular time, and every night of the week, every one of them would be out, bar a Monday, I think it was. They'd be out there doing their skill and what they called back then dances. And people used to go into these dances Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they had it for about 5 or 6 years before the disco scene came along. And of course, then they evaporated and they were never to be seen again. But there's some fine musicians at that particular time. But it's close to what you said, George, about the big band. It was that type of environment. But 600 bands. I mean, you think from an economy point of view, there was 8 in a band, so that was over 4,800 people. And
Mhm.
when they went to a particular dance function, there was drinks, there was food to be had, and the economy was booming at the time because of it. Do you follow me? But
Mm.
then when they disappeared, of course, the economy went downhill a little bit.
Wow. Harry, you live in, let me see if I get this right. Londonderry, Derry.
Yeah, Derry, Londonderry.
Can you explain that for us?
Yeah. If you got about 3 years, you could probably do it. If you got 3 years, I could probably tell you the whole thing. It goes way back to well, Ireland goes back several thousand years, as you know, but from the 1800s, I think it was 1801 to about 1922, Ireland was ruled as part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. It was Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales. But after 1922, there was a partition, mainly because of the fighting that went on at the time. And the UK government and the Irish government decided to set up two countries within the one. One was Southern Ireland, which had 26 counties in it, and Northern Ireland, which remained part of the UK, had 6 counties in it. Now, at that particular time, going back over the years, after the potato famine blew away, etc., etc., England provided, or London companies provided a lot of financial aid into Derry, as it was called then, and the Derry then become a legal identity. They were called Londonderry. The London part was due to the influx of money, tradesmen, etc., that came in from London, and from that particular time, it was called Londonderry. Well, if you're of a particular nationalist persuasion, you would always call it Derry. No nationalist in his right mind would call it Londonderry. Whereas if you were a Protestant unionist background, you would call it Londonderry. Personally, I just call it Derry and leave it at that. But that's where it all stemmed from. It was stemmed from the aid that came in from London at the time. But ever since then, of course, they've been fighting to get it back. And who's fighting over? They're fighting over the particular name of Derry, Londonderry. The local council call themselves Derry City Council, but the official name of the city, it was given by royal descent, I think. It is actually called Londonderry, but it's just hopefully that answers your question.
It does. It does. I find it very interesting. Paul, do you play a musical instrument by any chance?
Not really anymore. I used to play a little guitar, but no talent.
He's honest too, Harry.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I make no bones about it. I just
I was,
very good.
George, I was expecting him to tell you that he was on the fiddle.
Do you really think he'd do that, huh, Harry? I guess he faked you out, Harry.
Yeah, it's all good fun. Incidentally, John Bundy, I was trying to get him for you on Facebook, and John, I sent him the link, and he said something. Do I have to press this link, or whatever? And I think he's gone offline now because I missed the first message where he said that. So whether he comes on time before your show ends, I don't know. But he's momentarily off the Facebook page.
Poor John. I'll have to get up with him after this is all over. As we're walking out the door, John will be coming in,
Yeah.
and he'll say, "Why are you guys late? Why, something along those lines." Bless his old Pete picking heart. He's a wonderful fellow. He sure has helped me, Harry, in putting some musical ventures together on the radio. He's one of them fellows that knows Tom, Bill, Betty, Sue, anybody out there. He might even know the Pope. I'm not sure. I mean, on a first name basis, But I think and you've done some shows with him by the way of Skype and different things, haven't you? Harry?
I've done live Skype shows where I kind of suggested we are coming live from John Bundy's lavish studios in Denver. And lots of people turned up there at the drop of a hat and played live for us. And they're excellent, I've got to say. But with Skype, I get was very hit and miss. You literally had to cross your fingers because sometimes the strength of signal wasn't good, depending on how many people were using it. And there, Nancy said we're missing John. And there was a guy called David Booker, who's a left-handed guitarist. He has had a real history over the years with playing some really good bands, man. And he was on entertaining us for about an hour or so. Paul, can you remember David Booker? He's been on twice.
Yeah, he's been on more than twice, Harry.
Yeah, and excellent. I could only put it down. He's a great chatter. He's a great player of a musical instrument, and the history. He played with the greats, especially in the UK before he left. He came from Manchester in England and moved over to Denver, never to return again. But at that particular time, the scene in the UK were getting off the ground, That's before the Beatles actually went to America and conquered America, if you remember right, George.
I remember. I remember. I was
Uh,
I was I was a I was a sophomore in high school uh, when the Beatles was gonna first appear on the Ed Sullivan Show. You know, it's gonna be a really great show. You know, or however he did it. Uh, and I remember sitting in world history class. I had it, and I can remember the man's name. My teacher was Mr. Shea, big man. But I remember that day in particular, Harry, because uh, Sunday, this was on a Friday. Sunday, the Beatles was supposed to appear on Ed Sullivan Show on TV. And I remember the girls, all the girls in the class, they were like uh, mummified, what's the word? Stupefied. They were like out of it because all they were talking about, whispering about, was the Beatles, the Beatles. It was like somebody took control of these girls. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
So yeah, I remember I remember when the invasion came, and for some reason I don't know why. Maybe it's because I spend so much time here on the Funny Farm, or maybe that's why I'm here at the Funny Farm. Uh, I remember that particular Friday afternoon in history class with Mr. Shea, and all the girls being like zombified, out of it. All I mean, they were dreamy eyed. They were drifting off. It was, I love you, yeah, yeah, and it goes on and on and on and on. But I remember that. I remember that. How did we get on that conversation?
If you look back in the old videos at that particular time and the girls and that screaming in the audience, you kind of, I can't remember. I assume everybody was at least 20 years of age, but the girls in the audience, I'm sure most of them were about 13 years of age, screaming their heads off, And that part, looking back, that's the amazing part. Well, whether you like the Beatles or not, you can't knock the fact that they've reinvented themselves over time and
Hmm.
they've turned out some good tunes.
Yeah,
They
one of Harry's regular listeners, a lady called Carol. She's good friends with John also. Um, she actually saw them on their first concert tour in the US,
wow.
which is quite a surprise. I mean, like I never actually met anybody except her who saw them live. So yeah, it's quite something.
Harry, do you by any chance uh, are you familiar with him? Man, he was an international journalist. There goes those bells here at the Funny Farm. Uh, that was a message from John. I'll share it with you later. But anyhow, the man by the name of come on, Espinlab. Sure. Let me look real quick. Ivor Davis.
Ivor Davis. No.
Ivor Davis. He's an international journalist. He was from England. uh, he is in his 70s now, but he was number one. He was at the crime scene. He was covering the murders, the Manson murders in California on August 9th, 1969. He was at the crime scene. He wrote a number of books about it. He covered the trial, and on and on and on and on and on. But he was with the Beatles. He toured with the Beatles for a whole year. He was like their own little reporter man. And this was an international journalist.
Mhm.
Just wondering if you were ever familiar with the name.
No, I wasn't familiar, but now you've said it, I must look it back and see if I could educate myself a little bit more. Seems like an interesting character for sure.
Yeah, he had quite a journey with him. In fact, I have him on my show coming up on Monday night. This Monday night at 8 p.m. Uh, he'll be with us, and we'll be discussing the Manson murders and so on and so forth, and the fact that He was touring with the Beatles, so that ought to be quite a trip. The Beatles, the Stones, the Kinks. Who else, Harry, from over your way?
Well, I think the Searchers were part of it as well. There was quite a few groups that hung on the tail end of the Beatles. The Beatles went over, and I think they had five consecutive number one hits or something at the time. And I think a lot of people used it as a kind of the gravy train to jump on it. And not that they were bad in any way themselves. I mean, they're um, all good groups in the UK, but they all went over to the States, and I think they all did well for themselves.
They did, and they certainly left an impression. Uh, in fact, they left a musical impression that is still being felt today. Don't you think, Paul?
Um, yeah, like they really at the time they were so far ahead of their time
Hmm.
when they started to get popular. It, it was like a light switch. I mean, you went from people like you probably don't remember, but people like Des O'Connor or Jim Reeves or Frank Highfield, and they're all kind of lounge singers and that. And then one day there was all these bands, and it was just like that.
Yeah, it was like somebody turned up the treadmill. You were just
Yeah, like over the space of a year, you went from all the basically solo acts. You had lady singers, men singers, but all of a sudden you had bands, and I guess they'd always been there, but they were sort of underground. They were playing pubs all over the place, and um, and then all of a sudden they were releasing records, and it changed everything.
Harry. You're the man that probably knows this. Uh, when they first got started, like Paul just said, they're playing pubs and so on and so forth. What was it, or how was it that all of a sudden they come from out of the darkness and into the light? What?
Well, I've never actually looked back in the history and looked up documentaries about them. I know they started off, they were calling themselves the Quarrymen, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, and then they lost one of the drummers. I think he went on a bit of a huff why they got rid of him, but Ringo Starr then complimented, and George Harrison came along. They played in the Cavern, which is a club. Well, it was the size of your garage, I'm sure of it. It wasn't very big, but it was always packed out with people willing to listen to the music. And to be fair with the Beatles, and this is different from the music of today's scene where young people go to a studio where there's mixers and all sorts of auto tunes, and they can't replicate what they've actually got on the record and go out and do a live version or do a tour on the strength of it. But look back at the early days of the Beatles and those bands. I mean, they kind of learned their art the hard way. They jumped on the back of a transit van. They might have traveled 200 miles and then the following night go another 100 miles somewhere else. So it was real kind of apprenticeship. It was like being an apprentice bricklayer or something. You learned your trade for 5 years before you thought that you were any good. So I think it all came out of there eventually, and one or two hit records. I mean, don't forget the Beatles covered a lot of other people's songs originally. They were covering the likes of Chuck Berry and that, and Buddy Holly I think was a big influence in the Beatles, as Buddy Holly was influenced on a lot of people in the UK, and I think it's like everything else in life. They had their breaks, um, and they were kind of down to earth lads. They never took themselves too serious, especially when they're being interviewed by the Americans. I think the Americans kind of, as I kind of said earlier, the humor wasn't the same. Nowadays, the kind of humor of the British and American are quite, you can get it. But in those days, I think sometimes the humor would be lost, and the Beatles were good at doing these one-line quick quips, and you could tell on the American reporter's face that they didn't get it at all. So they were very down to earth, and I think that's the appealing thing about them. But looking back, you either liked the Beatles or you liked the Rolling Stones. That was the two separations. And if you kind of liked something a bit more clean image, you'd have went for the Beatles. If you were kind of in one of those rough kind of, you want to be a kind of a hardened hippie or whatever, you'd do go for the Stones. Like Paul, he would have went for the Stones. I could tell you right away.
I was a bad man. Well, actually, I was a boy back then.
I to this day, Harry. In fact, I might have said it this morning to Nancy. I'm always saying I'm about ready to have a 19th nervous breakdown. You remember that one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm about ready to have a 19th nervous breakdown. I used to love that. And of course, that 19th nervous breakdown, of course, that's probably why I'm here at the Funny Farm, and I enjoy myself here in our world. So maybe I did, maybe I didn't, maybe I'm getting ready to have one. I don't know, Harry, but
Yeah.
that song bounces around quite a bit in my head. There's there's a lot that bounces around in my head. Believe me, gentlemen. This this has been fun. Where's it at? I there it goes. There's what the wife of 51 years said. Very enjoyable conversation. Uh,
51 years. Congratulations.
Yeah, well done, George.
yeah, I always tell her guys that if you ever leave me, I'm going with you. So
Yeah, well, it took me two, and I still ain't up to 51 years. So, that's pretty good going.
yeah, after all this time, I tell her we got too much invested in each other. We'd go in the red if we separated. So we'll just stick together. We hammered it out this long, brother, and we'll continue to hammer it out until the end. So
I was just thinking of a Facebook quip, George. Nothing to do with you or Nancy, but it was something similar that made me laugh. The question was, would you like a wonderful wife, or would you like a nice car? Which one would you pick, diesel or petrol? So you wouldn't get that. Paul probably would. In other words, it was just sighted down by the way of the car. You got it, didn't you, Paul?
Yep. Yeah, I did.
I where's she at? Look around, make sure.
Make sure the coast clear.
Yeah, when I definitely know we're by ourselves, Harry. I better shut up because she's out there listening somewhere. Anyhow, man, it has been enjoyable. I'm so sorry that John didn't make it. Let me pop this thing up here and see if I can. He said, "Hi, George. Turns turns out I need to download Google Chrome on my new laptop. So far, I've not been able. May I have a rain check?" Sure, John, no problem, buddy. We'll get you. We'll get you. He's a principal man. He's a principal man. Every time I've called him and chatted with him, he's just been delightful. He makes me laugh. And Harry, I do. I want to tip my hat to you one more time, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, I got some new software. Now Harry, he's been using this software since right after he came off the boat, off the ark. In fact, him and Noah are the guys that drew it up. But he's been using this software forever. So he was familiar with it. Me, I come trudging along, and so I finally do. So Harry, he upgrades his older version to the newer version. And so Espinlab, he's looking for this missing link, the piece that he needs to put something together that he's working on. So, to make a long story short, I hook up with Harry. We hook up on StreamYard and we have us a private conversation. And for, I think it was two or three different times, Harry, that we hooked up. But, ladies and gentlemen, this man stayed with me those several times that we were on StreamYard together, and I trying to figure out how to get this thing configured. He stayed with me several times. I said, Harry, we can walk away from this thing. No, no, no. I want to see if this thing works. I want to see if we can get it for you. And by George, we got it. Thanks to Harry. Thanks to Harry. He stayed in the trenches with me, and we wrestled that alligator down. And Harry, I just want to tip my hat to you one more time, my friend. I owe you big time. You didn't have to do that. You could have told me. You could have told me to go take a long walk off a short pier, or just got disgusted with me and said, "Go away, Lob." But you didn't. You hung in there, and I thank you for it. And I want everybody to know that Harry Burke is a prince of a man. And Paul, I don't care what Harry says about you. I'm not going to pay attention to him anymore. I think you're delightful, my friend. I really do.
Well, thank you. It's been nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me plaster this thing up here one more time because you have to go there. Harry, you going to do a show Sunday?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. You Google the Swingin' 60 show with Harry Burke. Harry will pop up. Now, 3 p.m. Eastern time here in the States. So whatever time zone you live into, you just go backwards and subtract and do whatever you want to. 3 p.m. Eastern time here on the East Coast. The Swingin' 60 show with Harry Burke. You will be in for a treat. I promise you. I promise you. There's no better place to go to get stale bread, stale sandwiches, and stale beer all in one place, and you can be with the unwashed and become a member. You'll get a card when you leave that you are a member of the unwashed, and you can even take your beer mug with you and a piece of crusty bread with you. It doesn't get any better than that. I'm telling you, get there on Sunday afternoon.
And George, can I butt in and add? And I'm sure Paul will confirm what I'm about to say is 100% truthful. We do have a quiz show, and the winner of the quiz show is paid out in virtual sterling pounds or dollars. Whatever you win, you can have. Now, Paul, as you've hinted at earlier on, he's won quite a few of these quizzes. And in actual fact, I think I've made him quite a healthy guy. I think he's changed his car, he's changed house on the strength of me giving him all that money. And Paul, I'm sure will confirm it, won't you, Paul?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Last time I tried to catch one of his checks, I spent 3 days in jail.
Thank you, Cheryl.
I forgot about the virtual money. Yeah, I forgot about that part. Ladies and gentlemen, it does not get any better than Harry's Place. You got to go to Harry's Place. And listen, go on Facebook and put in that little search box thingy up there, Harry Burke, Burke, and get on his Facebook page. And when he goes for his walks and his drives and his come on, Espinal, his historical ventures and all those good things, you can go with him. And perhaps you'll even get to see him when he has that day with the wind blown, the gusting wind blowing through his hair there on the coast of Ireland. Did I do that all right, Harry?
You did it very well. And in fact, looking at Paul now, he's given me an idea for these windy conditions down the beach. I'm going to get one of those hats that Paul's wearing momentarily. And I think I might just be able to tie the hair down with that.
Harry, you would look good in a hat like Paul has.
Yeah, it's from the Gap.
He don't you think he would really look good, Paul?
Oh, delightful.
I don't want to say anything really bad, but Paul's starting to look like a burnt matchstick.
My goodness. Oh, that was a good one, Harry. Oh my goodness gracious sakes alive, Aunt Sally. Paul's starting to look like a burnt matchstick. Okay. Oh, Paul, he just takes it as a grain of salt, Harry. You know, it just bounces off.
Those sticks and stones, right?
Yeah, them old sticks and stones will break your bones, but those names won't hurt you, will they, Paul?
That's right.
Oh my goodness. Guys, thank you for spending the time with me this afternoon. We're going to do this again, and hopefully by then, however long it takes, John will get his Chrome browser downloaded on his new laptop, that he'll be able to join us. Honest, John, I'm not laughing at you. I don't think I am. I just can't stop laughing when I think about it. But anyhow, hopefully John will be able to be with us next time. Guys, we're going to do this again. Maybe we can pull Rod in or whatever. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, the Swinging 60s, Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And you do the math with your particular time zone. But you get there to Harry's place, because let me tell you, them moldy sandwiches, that stale beer, it goes pretty quick. I mean, they're in there, they're munching. They go there to munch. So,
Hey George, thank you very much for plugging me show. I do appreciate it. And hopefully Paul will turn up, and you might hear Paul if he Skypes in. He used to Skype in, but he's gone very shy in that department.
I haven't installed Chrome on my new Skype on my new laptop.
Well, you're going to have to get that installed, Paul, so you could Skype in on Harry.
Yeah, it seemed to be causing me a lot of issues, but yeah, we used to Skype one time.
It's free. It's free now, Paul. You don't have to. In the early days, that virtual money I give you, you used to have to pay for Skype, but now it's quite free.
But it was always free for me, Harry. I was nicking it myself.
Oh my goodness gracious, gentlemen! Thank you so very, very, very much for spending time with me, Harry. It's getting late where you're at.
Yeah.
It's what, 11 minutes after 9?
11 minutes after 9, I'll have to put the old Botox on soon and get to bed.
Yeah. Paul, are you on the same time I am?
Yeah, I'm on Eastern time also, George.
Okay. All right. So, anyhow, Harry, you get a good night's sleep, my friend.
All the best, George. And all the best, Paul.
Yeah, you too, Harry. Thank you very much, George. It's been a great pleasure.
Hey, we're going to do it again, buddy. We really will. All right, guys.
Bye-bye. Take care, George. And Nancy, all our best to Nancy.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ah, what a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful show. I told you we were a motley crew. What you see is what you get. Just three old guys sitting around chewing the fat. Wow. We're going to get out of here as soon as I find the dooflicky for the whatchamacallit. Then we're going to play the thingamajig. All that kind of good stuff. We'll see if we can get this thing back here right again. Them guys are a trip. Them guys are a trip. Tomorrow night, don't forget. Let me bring this up before we leave here real quick. Tomorrow night, we'll be in Australia, or we won't be in Australia. We'll have a man on from Australia. So tonight this afternoon, we had Harry in Ireland, Paul in Canada. This man right here, Chris Herman, will be with us from Australia tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And so tomorrow night when we have Chris on the show, which will be Wednesday night, it'll be Thursday already where he is at. Go figure that one. He'll be with us. He backpacked around the world and he's going to talk and tell us all about it tomorrow night. So be with us. And then on Friday night, we'll have Stephen Page with us, and he will be coming to us out of Argentina. So this has been a real international week here on the George Espinlove Show. Tonight, go up there on the radio. I don't know why I keep saying up there. I've been saying that for years, but go up there. There I go. Go up there on the radio, Spreaker.com, and there it is. Or go to our Facebook page right there, and you can ding yourself in to our radio show tomorrow night or tonight. We'll be up there, and we'll probably be running 3 or 4 shows tonight. So tune in. We'll be running them starting about 8 o'clock, and we'll run them till they're done. We'll probably be running another exciting episode of Unshackled, and we'll probably be running an episode of Darren Streblow Comedy Hour, and who knows what else. But we'll be broadcasting that tonight on the radio. So tune in with me. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, being part of this menagerie that we have here. But with our live stream, our radio show, we got things banging. We got some more things that's coming down the pike. We have a lot of things that's planned. Great guests, both on the radio and here on the live stream show. So thank you for all your support. Thank you for tuning in. And now this is what we always say. Whether you're down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world, thank you for spending this afternoon with us. Start those watch parties. Get this thing out there. Push it out there near, far, and wide. Thank you for being a part of this. And whether it's nighttime where you're at, or it's already tomorrow where you're at, whatever it is, you stay safe, be kind, love one another, and may God keep you right in the center of his hand. I'll see you later. Thank you.